Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers here with SF Indie Fest Green Film Festival San Francisco. As you can see, we're still kind of in the kind of topsy-turvy world of the pandemic. So our program is kind of a mixture of live and online stuff. But I have to say, we're glad that filmmakers kept on making films. So as we kind of come out of things, we have these wonderful films to share with you. And we have some of the team members here behind the wonderful documentary you just saw, Elephant Keeper. We have Angel Amaya and Kate Kirby here. Thank you. So maybe a good place to start. What was the kind of genesis for the film?
The film really started back in 2013, and my colleague Meg Webster and I wanted to do a project together in Lao, and we had researched this totally different story, and we're collaborating with a nonprofit there. And unfortunately, for security reasons, that fell through. And so we arrived in Lao for 2 months of filming and then found out that the project was no longer going forward. So there was a lot of research that we did kind of just as we went, and we started the interview process for a few different stories. And finally, we read about the elephant situation and the impending extinction within Lao and started investigating that. I had had some experience doing human elephant conflict research in Botswana as an undergrad. Oh, wow. And so I was already familiar with, and also studied environment and conservation. And so I had some familiarity already with that general subject matter, but within the context of Southeast Asia and Laos specifically, it was a new topic for both of us. So that's how it started.
And, in deciding to make a film, where do you kind of see the power of, film being able to kind of help, audiences kind of understand these kind of, important issues that are out there? How do you kind of see film as a tool?
Angel, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. I mean, when I came to this project, Kate had a rough cut, and I was coming off of producing another full feature documentary. And when I saw this rough cut, I was like, I just fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with the story. And I really sought at that point to, as a storyteller, as a producer, I think my job is really to be that bridge builder, to use the tools of storytelling to create structure, to amplify what's already there, the heart of the story, the themes that are playing out in folks' lives, and really make that information digestible in a feature-length film. Yeah.
And, I can imagine that, telling this sort of story, has its own challenges. I mean, one is just, the challenges with the subject matter, in dealing with wildlife, and then also just even environmental. So what are kind of some of the kind of unique challenges that you ran into and, making the film, and, how did you kind of continue to persevere and kind of put together this wonderful film?
Yeah, there were a lot of challenges. I think every project has its unique challenges. It's a difficult field, documentary filmmaking, and really trying to stick to the heart, the truth of the story. And so a lot of times that just can take many years to sift through and distill for yourself and also for the audience. And I know for me personally, there are a lot of, I tend to think about like worst case scenario. I think I'm just like really programmed for that. So shooting in the jungle, I'm constantly thinking, okay, are there snakes around? At the time I was very arachnophobic. So I was looking out for these massive golden orb spiders. Obviously elephants can be extremely dangerous. And so that was another challenge to the filmmaking process, was respecting the distance to keep everyone safe, and following the guidance of the mahouts, who didn't speak English and we didn't speak Lao. And so there were a lot of challenges also not having electricity. The conservation center is off grid. And so how do you keep your computer charged? How do you back up your footage at the end of the day, your batteries, all of that? And so there were a number of challenges that I think one of the biggest challenges was at the end of the shoot, going through footage for years and trying to figure out, what is the heart of this story, and bring other people in like Angel to really help have outside perspectives. We had multiple translators, I think around 6 translators on the project throughout the years. And getting different translations and then double and triple checking. So yeah, and I think part of that challenge is also an opportunity in a way to just sit back and observe and let the story organically unfold, which is just something that I think really takes time and patience, and yes, a lot of perseverance for sure.
And do you, one of the things that we often talk about in documentary filmmaking is like, this kind of phrase, trust building, right? And so I imagine that kind of falls in line, given how threatened these elephants are and the different kind of, threats to there is like, how did you kind of, get the community and, the kind of protagonists in the film to kind of like open up and kind of say, hey, support you in kind of making the film, or at least being willing to kind of share their stories?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, another challenge too, especially in Laos, is that you can't just go in and film. You have to get government permission. You're supposed to have a government censor along with you at all times.
Oh, wow.
And so, which is not actually the process we went through. So that was just another added challenge to kind of build trust with the organization. But honestly, a lot of it is just being transparent. I think sometimes there's and just a lot of also being really clear about, getting enthusiastic consent from people who might not understand the scope of when you have permission to record someone and where that could potentially go. And so also doing some work around that. But I think for the most part, I mean, being really, when you don't speak the same language, we did with some of the organizers there, but I think when you don't speak the same language, there's other cues that people pick up on with trust building. And I think a lot of that is Meg and I are pretty sociable and also respectful, and I think pretty patient. And I think there was just immediately a connection. Mr. Tong was actually the first person that we were kind of thrown into the jungle to, oh, you want to get oriented to this place here, follow Mr. Tong, he'll take you in. And we hadn't decided to create a story where he's the protagonist or anything, but we instantly had this connection just right off the bat. The first time we followed him into the jungle, there was a lot of laughter, a lot of nervous laughter when we're kind of, bushwhacking and just following him out through the mountains. But yeah, just immediately there was a very human connection there that made the, the trust building, the relaxation. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty much, we really relied on relationship in a more like physiological way and not so verbal, really, in that particular case.
And have some of the folks in the film seen the film yet? And what was their reaction?
So there's been definitely some challenges with getting the film to Mr. Tong. We just connected 2 weeks ago via Facebook. And I have some connections that I think could potentially get a downloaded version to him. He has not seen the film yet. He's seen the trailer and he's seen some posters and whatnot. So I'm definitely looking forward to showing it to him. I have this fantasy of being able to do it in person, but I was actually recently in Thailand last week or a few days ago and just got back, and I was kept on checking the border regulations with COVID, but it was still just not the right time to go over, unfortunately. So he hasn't seen it yet. A couple other people at the Conservation Center have seen it, or the founder of the Conservation Center has seen it. And yeah, I think that they've, as an organization, shifted a lot since 2013. And so that's another thing too, of when you show a story in its truth of in that moment, how, does it remain relevant? How is it relevant? What are the reactions, 8.5 years down the road? And so that's something that we really tried in the final credits to update people, and we encourage people to go to their website as well to just see how they've grown and evolved.
Very cool. So as we kind of, thanks again for sharing the film with us. Yeah, what would you like us in the audience to kind of take away from the film, and how can we kind of help spread the word about these efforts?
Angel, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the beautiful aspects of this film is that it is a meditation. We're not trying to tell you what to think. We're not trying to give you answers to things. There's a lot going on, issues of industrialization, globalization, ecotourism, conservation. There's just a lot going on. And I think through kind of the cinema verite form of just like following Mr. Tong and May Doc, like it really just opens up questions. I think we want the audience to ask questions of themselves and what their relationship is, with Mother Earth, with the planet, and what their role is, within conservation or activism, or upholding some of their community knowledge and solutions. So I think that's really true to me, is just connecting these like universal values, and really just like feeling that shared experience, and the weight of it. And I think there's a moment in the film where, Mr. Tong is singing, and he says, basically like, are we going to make it? I think that's a really big question right now. I mean, some of my work, I'm a communications director for grassroots, environmental justice organizations. And we're doing all we can, to find solutions, to bring people together, to feel connected again, in the face of climate change. So I think we're all asking ourselves that question.
Very cool. Well, thank you again for joining us, Angel and Kate, and just really appreciate you sharing this film with San Francisco. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.